They have the unique claim in the football world of being the only team that has not played a home game in more than 21 years. That is because their home city of Agdam in western Azerbaijan was destroyed by war and remains a ghost town under enemy occupation to this day. They are the Horsemen, or the Qarabag Agdam Football Club, and if still officially a refugee team, in 2014, the Horsemen managed to rise to the dizzying heights of the group stage of the Europa League. They played against such football giants as Ukraine's Dnipro, the French Saint-Étienne, and the legendary Inter Milan of football-obsessed Italy. But perhaps I'm getting ahead of this Cinderella story. If anyone in the football-crazed world had ever heard of Azerbaijan before, it was probably in the context of the 1966 World Cup between England and West Germany. It was in the very early days of television, and the whole world was watching, when a Russian linesman made a disputed call against the German Mannschaft, justifying it due to Soviet losses during World War II. In a word, Stalingrad.
The referee consulted the linesman, who'd been in line with the posts, and goal it was.
The linesman was Taufik Bahramov, and he was not Russian, but rather a citizen of Soviet Azerbaijan. And today's national stadium in Baku bears his name. While the Azerbaijani linesman may have had a certain notoriety in football circles, to my knowledge, the Azerbaijani Qarabag Agdam Football Club had none. Or at least none that I knew about, despite some 25 years reporting on Azerbaijan. Most of that reporting had to do with the horrible war over Qarabag in the immediate post-Soviet period. That conflict resulted in over 30,000 dead, spawned nearly 1 million refugees, and left almost 20% of Western Azerbaijan under enemy occupation. A football team was not part of any mix I knew of. Then I was approached by a young Dutch academic named Artur Hezinqa. He was writing a book on a football team who had become refugees as a result of the Qarabag War.
I was very interested in the Qarabag conflict, the Qarabag War. And at one stage I read some books and I read about a town called Agdam, one of the larger towns in Azerbaijan during Soviet times, and now occupied and completely devastated. This at first got my interest, and then I started to find anything I could on the internet and through books on this town of Agdam, and it wasn't much, except for a football team with the name of Qarabag Agdam.
As a self-styled expert on all things Azerbaijani, I realized it was high time for me to go back to school and learn about the Qarabag Agdam Horsemen myself.
One of the most memorable stories was the story of the last championship this team achieved, which was in 1993. Back then, Agdam was besieged by the Qarabag Armenian army. There were grenades falling into the city, but still, the team kept on playing during that season.
This was truly crazy. Soldiers holding a thin line so that local civilians could watch a football game? Working my network of Qarabag War veterans, I discovered that everything that Artur had related was true. The men who protected the stadium were a determined lot, determined to instill a sense of normality in an increasingly chaotic situation.
Bəli, atışmalar gedirdi və şəhərin özünə də bir neçə qrad attılar. Düzdür, stadiona düşmədi. Qrad atanda maçı saxladılar və bir 15 dəqiqə fasilədən sonra yenidən başladılar.
əgər siz köhnə çəkilişlərə baxmış olsanız görəcəksiniz ki, minlərlə həmin oyuna azarkeş baxıb həmin oyuna. Bu insanlara mənəvi ruhdur, mənəvi dəstəkdir. Əgər bir futbol takımı ağır şəraitdə olan öz komandasını, öz şəhərini qoyub getməməkdir. Yəni yaddan çıxartmayıb. Yəni burada biraz təhlükə var deyə oynamayaq. O düşüncədən deyil, amma bu insanlara, o şəhərdə hələ şəhəri tərk eləməmiş insanlara çox böyük mənəvi dəstəkdir. Orada futbol maçının keçirilməsi.
But there was a limit to civilian as well as military endurance. Commander Ədalət Məhərrəmov remembers the final days.
Şəhər boş idi. Şəhərdə insanlar var idi, yəni balet şirkətlərdə futbol həvəskarları, onlar var idi, az idi. Yəni bizdə də həmən hərbi hissələrdən bütün soldatların həm onların qorunmasında, yəni qorunmasında belədir ki, həmən vaxtda Agdamda bilmirəm sayın 40-50 qrad mərmisi düşmüşdü. Cəmaət vahamə içində idi. Ona baxmayaraq 15-20 dəqiqə saxladılar futbolu. Təhlükədən belə görürsünüz, təzədən bir də başladılar.
The last top Division League match at Agdam's Imaret Stadium was played on May 12th, 1993, ending in a 1-0 semi-final victory for the besieged hosts.
They had a really good team. Went back to Baku again to play for the championship, a final. They played a final, they won the final, and there was never a celebration. All these players, most of them were from Agdam, all these players went back immediately looking for their family. There was no celebration, no banquets, nothing.
The city of Agdam was seized and destroyed on July 23rd that same summer and has been occupied ever since. Temporary Agdam, meanwhile, was relocated to a place called Guzanli, not far from the front lines, and in a vast area of refugee tent cities and boxcar settlements of railway sidings. The Qarabag Agdam football team, meanwhile, had begun a forced march to its unique status as a refugee club. Today, with government assistance, the Guzanli tent camps are a distant, if still bitter, memory. And most of the squalid Agdam refugee settlements have evolved into some semblance of being real communities. And central to their retaining a collective identity is the Qarabag Agdam football team.
I was a witness of a football game played in Guzanli. Guzanli is in the Agdam region, which is not occupied, which is a place where maybe 20 or 40,000 refugees live from the Agdam region. And there is a stadium over there. And this team went there to play their home games, traveled for 8 hours and traveled back for 8 hours just to be with their own supporters and their own people.
The devotion of the refugee fans for their club and the devotion of the refugee players to their fans slowly resulted in a team of contenders to be reckoned with. At a Premier League game in Baku's Xətai Baxışov Stadium in 1997, the horsemen rolled over the rival Şəmkir team like a stampede of wild horses for a crushing 3-0 victory, including a fourth goal called back after the referee's whistle. The players were ecstatic at the prospect of broadcasting the name of their team, Qarabag, to the world. Today, back in Guzanli, the temporary Qarabag Stadium is now empty, and mainly due to security concerns. Elnur Məhərrəmov, who grew up in a nearby tent camp, explains why.
Yaxşı olardı ki, Qarabag klubu ev oyunların Agdamda, öz torpağındakı, yəni burada keçirərdi. O torpaqlara qayıtmaq ümidini biraz da yaxınlaşdırardı.
Bu sərhəd harda?
Sərhəd təxminən buradan 5-6 kilometr aralıda, kənarda. Hər an burada futbol gedəndə burada səsdən ermənilər eşidir, atəşkəsi pozurlar tez-tez. Yəni burada insanların alqışların, yəni burada azarkeşlərin səsindən ermənilər hər an atəşkəsi pozur, maneçilik törətməyə çalışırlar.
A pity for the refugee fans and a pity for the players. Many of them are refugees themselves. There was Captain Rəşad Sadıqov, legally a refugee from a place called Kəlbəcər. Sen harlıksın?
Harlıyam.
Evet.
Qarabaglı.
Qarabaglı. Esas Qarabag. Nasıl kent?
Kəlbəcər. Sen de oralısın?
Sayılır. Yani Kəlbəcər'den Akırıncı günü ben oradaydım.
Ben vertoletansım sana. Doğrudan.
Biz yani orada çapacaktık. İlk vertolot vardı.
İnşallah ile seninle orada görüşeceğiz biz. Yakın zamanda.
There was Namiq Yusifov, born in St. Petersburg, but from an Agdam family. Aside from his nimble feet, he should be a refugee from Kuzanli too.
And these people, when you saw them, you feel heart pain because they don't have nothing. They stay there in the poor life there. And when we came there and play, they got something special. They be happy because this Qarabag team come. And when we win there, you give them like second chance. They start to believe they can win because they lost war and come refugees from their home. And when Qarabag team win, they got something happy.
There is Qara Qarayev, born in a place called Füzuli, which was overrun in the summer of 1993, when his family was cast into a refugee compound in Baku, where he first started to play football on a pitch made out of cement.
Burada yarış kesildi, turnuva. Kənarda durmaq olmurdu, hamımız çıxırdıq, yuxarılardan baxırdıq. O zaman da adı Qarabag idi. Böyle burada yaratmışdılar. Bu bina ilə bu binaya oynuyorduk həmişə. Burada 4-5 tane böyle bina var.
Yani Qarabag meydan.
Biz oynuyorduk.
İmaret.
Uduzan məsələn 5-5 oynuyorduk. Uduzan komanda bir dənə kola alacaqdı, ya Sprite alacaqdı. Çox maraqlıydı.
Another player I got to know was the Baku-born Russian, Maksim Medvedev. Max started to play professional football at around age 15 for $50 a month to help the family make ends meet. Coming from a poor family himself, he has always identified with the Qarabag refugees.
İmенно bu Quzanlı, yəni rayonunda, yəni bütün cəmaət hamısı belə başı aşağı gəzirdilər, biraz elə bil ki, sevinc yox idi da. Yəni baxırdın həmin insanların üzünə, istəyirdin ki, onlar biraz gülsün eləsin. Çünki yəni doğrudan da yəni bildiyimizə görə Qarabağ çox belə yaralı bir yerdir Azərbaycan üçün. Ara olub ki, biz gedib bizim oyunlarımızı Quzanlıya salmışdılar və həmin an, yəni baxmayaraq ki, 3000-lik stadionuydu. Yəni bir də gördün ki, oyuna 5000 adam gəlirdi. Nə var? Qarabağı belə dəstəkləməyə və biz həmin vaxt uğur qazananda, yəni komandalara qalib gələndə onlar çox sevinirdi.
And then there is Vüqar Nadirov, born in Agdam and raised there until his father, General Rəşad, pulled the family out to safety, returning to be with his military men as the clock ticked toward doom. Rəşad was killed on the day that the city fell.
Oynamağı da çox sevirdi. Bu balaca vaxtıdır, idmanda.
The technical director or coach of the Qarabag Agdam Horsemen. He's a former player himself, man of few words, taciturn, but when he speaks, he means business. Ian Peart, a Baku-based Brit and football fanatic, summed it up very nicely.
When they play in Europe, the whole of Azerbaijan gets behind them, the supporters of all the other teams. They developed a real aura about this team. And it's obvious even from foreign players who come in. There's something special about this team.
The proof was in the pudding. Fighting their way through the Azerbaijani Premier League, on May 7th, 2014, the Qarabag Horsemen played for their first championship since that summer of 1993, when they lost their stadium at Agdam. And Artur was there to witness the event.
The opportunity to become a champion again and have a true and good celebration, I think that's a historic event, and maybe we're going to witness that tonight.
After a moment's silence to remember the victims of the Qarabag War, the highly motivated horsemen launched their stampede. Striker Ronaldo punches in the first glorious goal. Baku Inter does not have a chance. The horsemen crushed their rivals 4-1 and took the championship. Then, in a deeply symbolic gesture, Kurbanov and his team duly delivered their trophy to the core fan club at temporary Agdam, the refugee lager called Guzanli, while paying homage to the men who had fallen in the war. The champions had come home to Qarabag. But this was hardly the end of their remarkable journey, and merely the beginning of mine. Newly oil-rich Azerbaijan has decided to build itself its own football dynasty, and based on a team of war refugees. Let's go take a look. Health and safety. When I began this journey and appended myself to the Qarabag Agdam football team, the players looked at me with a certain degree of suspicion, wondering, who is this old American guy who doesn't really even understand the rules of the game? But after 3 months of living with these guys, the question that was always asked when I did not show up for a practice session was, and where is Thomas? Boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom. Something really, really magical happened. They say that football is like religion. You either believe in it or you don't. And to be admitted into the church, you have to accept the interplay between home points, away points, draws, and other details of the beautiful game that can drive an American guy like me completely mad. I began following this football club with the most basic knowledge of the game. I mean, to this day, I don't really know what an offside is. I know what a penalty kick is, I know what a corner is, but I still cannot really comprehend about how a team can win while making a draw against another team. It's called the aggregate. As Azerbaijani victors, the horsemen were elevated to the European Champions League, where they trounced a Maltese team called Valletta 4-0. 5-0, if you count the aggregate. Next came the Red Bulls team from Salzburg, Austria. Playing in Baku, the horsemen shocked the football world with a 2-1 upset victory, playing with only 9 men on the pitch after 2 red cards. But in the revenge match in Austria, Salzburg turned it all around with a 2-0 win, thus knocking the horsemen out of the Champions League, but somehow bounced them into the qualifying phase of the Europa League. Go figure. As fate would have it, the horsemen were drawn to play Twente, a well-known team from Holland. Poor Arthur. He must have had his loyalties stretched as tight as a drum. To everyone's surprise, on August 21st, the horsemen held on for a 0-0 draw in Baku. This was followed even more incredibly by a 1-1 draw at the away game in Holland. But for me, there was something much more interesting than the Qarabag equalizing goal, because it speaks volumes about the horsemen team. Let's watch. Muharrem bends the ball into the net in a truly beautiful shot. He then raises a hand so his teammates do not mob him just yet. He seeks and finds a direction he knows well, bends to his knees, and puts his forehead on the ground, towards Mecca. Muharrem is a believing and practicing Muslim, as are most members of the Qarabag team. The horsemen are infused with faith. But back to the beautiful game. I used to think that world football was the World Cup, where you got the national teams. You got the Brazilians, you got the Germans, you got the Dutch, you got the South Africans, etc. No. You got the Championship League. You've got the National League. You've got the clubs. You've got the Europa League. You've got the Asian League. And all of these things kind of mashed together in this beautiful way that I'm starting to understand. In scoring away with the Dutch 20 and winning on aggregate, Qarabag Agdam has made it into the groups level and would now play against three formidable rivals. The powerful Dnipro from eastern Ukraine, Saint-Étienne, that has won more titles than any other French football squad, and Inter Milan, heir to such a rich legacy that cup titles are literally listed by year on the steps of Milan's legendary San Siro Stadium. And those steps are long and high. The first match was played in Baku against Saint-Étienne. The date was September 18th. In a packed Xətai Baxışov stadium, the horsemen played to a 0-0 draw. The heavily favored French team were apparently happy to escape with that draw.
It was something of a revelation. I was surprised, really. I'd seen him before, but I'd never seen him play like that. And Saint-Étienne were under pressure the whole game. It was, I think they were pretty glad to see the end of the game, to hear the final whistle.
Next, the refugee club traveled to Italy to joust with the fabled Inter Milan on October 2nd.
Sevgilim seyre çıkak, burada gelik baharım.
Sevgilim seyre çıkak, burada gelik baharım.
Dil açır kalbimizin en şirin arzularım.
Dil açır kalbimizin en şirin arzularım.
The trip was kicked off at Baku Airport by famous singers in disguise at a surprise flash mob event. Arriving in Milan, we were met by an Italian collecting autographs from all the horsemen he could gather.
Very good. Forza Qarabag. Number 17. È brasiliano? Brasil, Ronaldo, eh? Ronaldo.
He meets every team playing against his beloved Milan.
Ciao.
Sir, do you speak English?
Little.
Are you a fan of the Qarabag team?
No, I am a collector of
autographs.
Yes, yes. All team that are arrival in airport.
Okay. Tell me this: have you ever heard of Azerbaijan before?
I have Baku.
Yes.
Yes, I have one autograph of Baku.
Excellent.
Yes, excellent.
So,
okay.
Ciao bello.
Thank you. Bye. Il direttore questo? Il boss? The boss?
Yeah.
Is the president? Is the president?
Team
No.
president? Rather, I'm starting to feel like that self-embedded American journalist, George Plimpton, and his classic book, Paper Lion, wherein the writer joins the iconic Detroit Lions football team to write a story and then starts to dream that he can actually play with them before he gets cut down to size. At least Plimpton trained with the Lions. Me? Train with the Horsemen? I am exhausted just watching them. I think of myself more along the lines of fantasy folk like Walter Mitty, Chauncey Gardiner, Billy Butler, or maybe even Roy of the Rovers, the cartoon character who kicks the winning goal for his dream team to thunderous applause. The players have become my friends. I've become insanely jealous of them in terms of their physical ability, their athleticism. They make me feel crippled and old, but at the same time, they have become my inspiration. But it was not all work. I even ran into a couple of the horsemen at Milan's famed Piazza del Duomo.
Oh, Thomas!
Welcome to Milan.
Thank you.
What are you doing here?
Football.
I know. Why do you think I'm in Milan? I came to watch you guys. Congratulations. I'm sure that you're going to have a great victory and bring pride and honor to your communities back in Azerbaijan, to Zuli, to Agdam, to Shusha, to Kalbajar, and all of Azerbaijan. Really, it's great to see you guys here.
See you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Next, we are off to the fabled 80,000-seat San Siro Stadium. The last time an Azerbaijani had left a mark here was in 1955, when a certain Alekber Mamedov, playing for Dinamo Moscow against Milan, scored 4 goals. That's a record that still stands today. But could such football magic repeat itself tonight? There is a basic rule that governs all collective sports. You play with the team you've got on the day of the game. And the Horsemen are playing without 3 of their stars. Happily, filling the void, the Azerbaijani fans known as the Imarat Tribe are there in force, drawn from a dozen European countries for the big match and to tell the world that their team is different. The boys start well, but Inter Milan score early, and the Azerbaijanis are shaken and regroup as a completely defensive team. But even this does not help. They concede a second goal 6 minutes from the end. And then it's all over, aside from the long ride home. The next group match is against the post-Soviet Ukrainian powerhouse, Dnipro, on October 23rd. What made this unique was that Dnipro was playing a home game away. Their stadium in Dnipropetrovsk in eastern Ukraine is too dangerous to play in, thanks to Russian-inspired separatist unrest. Thus, Dnipro too have also become some sort of refugee team and forced to play in Kiev. The huge Ukrainian national stadium is half empty. It also seems that there are more Horsemen fans there than Dnipro devotees. On the pitch, the Ukrainians dwarf the Horsemen and dominate opening action. Then in the 21st minute, goalie Ibo plucks down a cross, throws the ball to Muharrem, who passes it to Richard, who passes it back to Muharrem, a feint left, a shimmy right. Once again, Muharrem faces Mecca for a prayer of thanks before his Horseman teammates are allowed to make the usual pile-on. With 69 minutes left to level the score, Dnipro pours it on. And the yeoman's work is left to Qarabag goalie Ibo to deflect away the increasingly desperate Dnipro attack. The Bosnian dives and leaps like a mad rabbit, fending off all shots until the 90-minute whistle when the Qarabag Horsemen collect their prize. A 1-0 upset victory. Qarabag Agdam is suddenly now in the running for the Europa League knockout stage, a level that no Azerbaijani team has ever achieved before. Dnipro is bitter, and a player complains about having to play a home game away, namely in Kiev. But my new pal Ansi Agolli comes up with a beautiful and brutal rebuttal. Were we able to play in Agdam, he says, we would beat Barcelona. But pride cometh before the fall, and the comeuppance came in the form of a revenge match 2 weeks later. On November 6th, at a packed Xətai Baxışov stadium, Dnipro scores first. Then, after a beautiful equalizing free kick by Leroy George that gives hope to the Horsemen, the relentless Dnipro come back with a second put-away goal. In real terms, the Horsemen are back in the cellar with 2 tough matches left in Group F, and at very long odds. First comes the away match against Saint-Étienne in eastern France. It is a friendly, working-class town near the Rhone River and where the bicycle was born.
My wife is born in Saint-Étienne.
My coincidental host was Georges Perez, whom I met downtown the day before the game. Unknown to me at the time, Georges was a vice president of the youth section of the French club and would be on the pitch with his kids to lift the UEFA emblem prior to the match.
ISIS is the club, the more famous in France with Marseille and PSG. Because it's the first club we go to the final of European League. The final contre Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich.
From this little town?
Yes.
We parted with a deep and friendly toast, lifting a glass of Rhone River wine. November 27th, and the big night for the visiting Qarabag Horsemen. The stadium is packed with devoted fans of Les Verts, or the Greens. They are apparently proud of their reputation for rowdy behavior. And the Qarabag Agdam fans are more or less corralled away under police guard. The lads play well, testing the French defense, probing here, probing there. And then, in the 15th minute, Vüqar Nadirov races between 2 defenders to chest down a long pass, and then perfectly lobs the ball over the head of the Greens goalie in an arc against which there is no defense. Later, Vüqar told me he was thinking about his father, General Ershad, when he scored. But the astonishing goal only serves to re-motivate the Greens, who return the favor by scoring 6 minutes later with a stinging slash past goalie Ibo. For the rest of the game, the Qarabag goalie is flinging himself to the right and left and leaping at impossible angles to fend off the relentless Green attack. Then, with the final whistle announcing a 1-1 draw, the Horsemen's trial by fire is over, and half the team bends toward Mecca to give thanks. By football logic, the Horsemen's away goal and draw on aggregate means that this is actually a huge win. Qarabag Agdam are once again back in the running.
Çıxdım belə napirişin ya, belə bir kart qoydum qabağına. Bir də görən ki, sürüdə orada mənə deyir ki, belə joltu kart çıxıcı.
The boys have a chance. Back in Azerbaijan, I continue to travel with the club when playing regular Azerbaijan Premier League games, traveling by midnight bus and sleeping 2 to a room while the Horsemen play in empty stadiums across the country. It must feel very odd, going from playing a match before 20,000 howling spectators in Milan to playing virtually for oneself, aside from a few very special fans. Mostly, though, it is just a long and lonely road. But the Horsemen can tolerate anything, including indifference, even while the schedule results in injury to key players. Such is the nature of the beautiful game. It is the team's duty to win, and the Horsemen remain on top of the Azerbaijan Premier League, acting, for all the world, as though there is no bigger game coming tomorrow. But I, and everyone else in Azerbaijan, know there certainly is the do-or-die revenge match in Baku against Inter Milan.
Qarabag is Azerbaijan's territory, you know that.
The team represents the hopes and dreams of a still traumatized nation.
Öyle mi? Niye göre?
Qarabag işğal olmuş Azərbaycan torpağı.
Bəli.
Ürəyimiz həmişə Qarabağla döyülür.
Bugün Agdamın Qarabag komandası öz doğma şəhəri olmayan, öz meydançası olmayan bir takımdır və Avropa Liqasında bugün bizi təmsil edir.
And then, out of the woodwork, pours even further affection.
Ey Qarabağ atları, şaha qalxın meydanda, vur qapıya qolları.
Another delicious flash mob, but this time made up of Baku bikers, festooning their machines with Qarabag flags and symbols to intercept and surprise the Horsemen on their way to the long-awaited showdown with Inter Milan. It's December 11th, 2014. The 35,000-seat stadium is packed to overflowing. Thousands of ardent fans are marching and fighting over scalper tickets outside. The entire throbbing mass of humanity in and around the stadium comes from all walks of life: rich, poor, urban, rural, and even a contingent of old soldiers from the Qarabag War. No, this would not be just any game, knockout round. Qarabag must take an outright victory to prevail, on aggregate, over its other Group F rivals. Then, up in Kiev, Dnipro scores, effectively moving the team from the bottom of Group F to Namiq, Maksim, and George form the initial pile on Richard. And then the entire Qarabag bench sprints out. We are into the knockout round. But the Czech linesman has raised his flag to call an offside. After an excruciating delay, the referee rules out Richard's perfect goal. Later, Ian Peart gave me his sad post-mortem.
Qarabag did really well. They were under pressure a lot of the game. They kept going right to the end of the game. And as we all know, 1 minute, and I couldn't believe it. I've seen the replays, and they were robbed. That was some tragedy, really.
Back on the pitch, the match continues for another 30 seconds before the referee blows his whistle on a 0-0 draw. It is an ending that could have been written in Hollywood or in hell. Fans, footballers, and even distant sports announcers are furious. Even the Italian media condemns the referee's call as the theft of the year. Stolen goals, stolen land, stolen glory. The linesman's call is a weird and deeply ironic echo of one of the most controversial calls in football, namely at the World Cup final of 1966, when Azerbaijani linesman Xətai Baxışov gave England the edge over bitter rival West Germany. That was not a stolen goal, but one that was given. The Cinderella story of the Qarabag Agdam Horsemen refugee team in the Europa League is at a sudden end. But the Qarabag Agdam players have walked off the field with heads held high, secure in the knowledge that they have achieved a 1-0 victory over Europa League giant Inter Milan. Even if it would be a statistic never to enter the official records, it is one that will remain written in their hearts forever.
Gelecek oyunlarımızda bütün Qarabağlıları, köçkünlərimizin hər birini sevindirəcəyik.
Sharing those thoughts was the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Əliyev. Condemning the crime of the stolen goal, he assured the team that he knew who had triumphed and predicted more victories to come.
Sizi bir daha təbrik edirəm. Qələbə münasibətilə mən hesab edirəm ki, siz qələbə qazanmışsınız. Həm dekabrın 11-də, həm ümumiyyətcə Avroliqada və yeni qələbələr arzulayıram sizə.
And most of those future victories, of course, will not be won by the 2014 team, but by a new generation of Qarabag Agdam horsemen, now training in the club's youth league. Like Rashad, Namiq, Vüqar, and Kara, many are legally refugees. This is the last match of the season. Stadium nearly empty again. Quite a difference from that great match with the stolen goal. The Qarabag Agdam horsemen continue to play at the top of the Azerbaijani Premiership, looking for their place in next year's Champions League, even if playing once again in stadiums devoid of any spectators other than their devoted Imret Tayfa fan club. But things have changed in Azerbaijani football, and forever. The refugee team from Agdam may still not be able to play at home, but I think they are already playing on the world pitch due to resilience and resolve. I can already hear the crowd roar.